Fiona was waiting in front of my office with a gloomy look in her eyes. She tried to smile. "Congratulations on your engagement," she said, trying to sound cheerful. But her face fell and she added, "I'm sorry about Nolan." I nodded, unable to speak. I need to get this meeting with Douglas done and over with. I pushed the door and tried not to cringe at the sight of him standing there with a condescending look on his face as he took a look at my office. "Douglas." He turned to face me with a patronizing smile. "Nolan. Look at you, son. Looking as good and ravishing as ever. Are the ladies still throwing themselves at Simone Pierce's heir? Or maybe he will come back to his senses." "What do you want?" I cut him off, eager to get him off my back. He laughed. "Impatient. Is this all you can afford after everything you've taken away from me?" He swept his hands around my office, looking condescendingly at the comfortable space. "I will not have you insult me, Douglas. I believe Lorraine must have told you about my offer. You either take it or you leave it." "I see. And 15% of all my property is more than generous." I stepped closer and walked past him to my chair, but I didn't sit. I wanted him out so I could get down to what is most important, my son and my job. "You made the rules, Douglas. Any other man would throw you and your family out of your homes because, technically, even your homes now belong to me. I didn't take you for this kind of man, Nolan." "You didn't take me as a man at all." I shook my head regrettably. "And I regret not seeing that when I accepted your offer, but now, you are in for more surprises if you think I am still that young, naive kid you used to know." He remained standing, and I wasn't ready to offer him a seat. He had a look on his face, one of pure surprise at the hard look on my face and the strength in my voice. "You are not the boy I used to know." "No. And while we are on that, my son is missing, and I know Lorraine has something to do with it." His eyes narrowed. "How dare you?" I shrugged nonchalantly. "Lorraine has done it before. What stops her from doing it again?" "My daughter is not a criminal." "Maybe not, but you are, and the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree." "Nolan!" The beep of his phone interrupted whatever threat he was going to make, and he stared at me a second too long with both hate and anger before reaching into his jacket to pull out the phone. His face hardened a second. Then a smile spread on his lips, and I recognized that cruel smile, that calculating look in his eyes, and something warned me to be cautious. "Lorraine is the least of your concerns." "What are you talking about?" I demanded, treading carefully to make sure he didn't pull another trick on me. "Your house is on fire, Pierce, and your girlfriend is feeding the fire rather unattractively." "Douglas, what the hell are you talking about?" I repeated, unable to stop myself from walking around the table to confront him. He held his phone up with a flourish, and I could tell just how much the headline he was displaying pleased him. But when I read it, my heart dropped. Chantel Jones attacks Lorraine Grant on live television. There was an article roughly put together to describe what had happened only 30 minutes ago, a very clear image of Chantel attacking Lorraine, and a link to a video was provided. I couldn't believe my eyes. But Douglas's Cheshire cat grin was my major concern. If he pushed charges for assault, he would not only reclaim everything, but he would destroy me. I tried not to let my fear show, but Douglas was like a bloodhound smelling blood, and when he dropped his phone back into his pocket and turned to walk out of my office, there was a spring in his heels that wasn't there before. He turned back at the door. "Now, Nolan, what do you think I can do with this new development? What can the public see?" I knew the answer to that. The public would see a bitter woman attacking the daughter of Douglas Grant, and they wouldn't care about the backstory. As soon as he left whistling a tune to himself, Fiona burst into my office looking worried. She stopped short when she saw the look on my face. "You've seen the article. And so has Douglas. Fuck. You're in trouble. Lorraine is going to use this as a weapon against you. That's what I'm afraid of. The Grants have proven themselves to be cruel monsters, and this doesn't make it any better. Chantel shouldn't have done that. She can do whatever she wants." I surprised myself by shouting. She's not the one at fault here. The woman walking free pretending to be a victim is very much at fault, and anyone who can't see it is blind. Fiona was apologetic when she took a step toward me. Nolan, I understand how you feel, but this isn't the way to do this. You're giving your enemies leverage against you. I waved off her concern and reached for my phone to call Chantal. She was no doubt feeling rotten about this too. And I was right, because no matter how many times I called, she didn't pick up her phone. I almost started panicking thinking about what she was doing, feeling. Chantal would never hurt herself over something as minor as this, but just in case. I grabbed my car keys and shot out of the office. Nolan! Fiona called out. Manage the office until I'm back. I know I can trust you, I yelled back as I walked out briskly into the sunny day. The irony. The darkest moment of my life right now, and the sun chose this moment to shine so brightly? I got into the car, hoping that the sunny day would somehow make everything all right. The drive to my cottage seemed to take forever. But I got there to be met with an empty house. Chantal's apartment. I floored the gas, thankful for the lack of traffic as I made my way to her apartment. Chantal's POV. My phone was beeping non-stop, and I gave up looking at it. Gossip columns and talk shows called, definitely looking to interview the center of the show. Mine is not the case of the crazy ex, but the crazy main chick. I'm not even mad it's me that's gotten caught up in this mess, I'm just mad that it is going to affect Nolan negatively and impact negatively on the search for my son. Now that I have gone ahead to act stupidly, who is going to believe me? Will I ever find Nolan? How will Nolan feel? These questions raced through my mind when, after 39 minutes, I picked up my phone and stared at the screen through red, puffy eyes. My mom had called multiple times. I couldn't ignore her, so I called back. "What the hell were you thinking, Coco?" she yelled. I tried not to cry anymore. I wasn't thinking, Mom. Damn right, you weren't. How will you find your son now? Do you know how powerful Douglas is? He is going to ruin you. Tears blurred my vision again. And what about Nolan? Did you think about that lovely young man before acting like some drunken bitter woman? I'm sorry. I cried, and my voice broke. She was silent for a long time, and I could tell she was forcing herself to calm down. It's what I have been trying to do and having little luck with. When her voice came over the phone again, she sounded calmer. I understand you are worried about your son. He is my grandson, remember? But this is not the way to do things. There's a process. I know that, Mom. I'm just worried the cops aren't taking this seriously enough. I understand your fears, Coco, and I'm sorry you have to go through this. She drew in a breath. I'm sorry for yelling. This isn't the time for that. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Have you spoken with Nolan? I cried. I can't, Mom. He's going to be so disappointed. That doesn't sound like the Nolan. I know. Baby. He is a good man and always has been. He loves you. But this is going to affect him negatively. I cried. His public image is ruined because of me, and... You don't know Nolan well if you think he cares about that kind of stuff over his family. Mom argued heatedly, and I desperately wanted to believe her, but right now it felt as though the whole world was crashing on my head and there was nothing I could do about it. Mom didn't stop there, she continued to defend Nolan's honor. Nolan is his child too, remember? We are women, and we are emotional, and Nolan would be the same too if you were in your shoes, which he is. You have to call him, Coco, this is a hurdle you both need to cross together. I sniffed. Okay, Mom. And right as I was about to hang up, the doorbell rang and my heartbeat sped. I walked quietly to the door and opened it, and Nolan immediately swept in and pulled me into a hug. I collapsed in his embrace, clinging tightly to him for dear life. My eyes ached from crying too much, but somehow tears still leaked from my eyes. He kissed my head and rubbed my back, whispering kind words, and I tried hard not to feel like such an idiot. Using his heel to kick the door shut, Nolan led us into the living area, still holding on to me while I tried to calm myself and find coherent words. "I am so sorry," I whispered into the front of his shirt. "I truly am." "SHH." He cooed and gently touched my hair, smoothing the rough curls that had been pulled out when Lorraine and I fought. "It's fine." I pulled back from him. "No, it's not. It's not fine. This little stunt has pushed us back 10 feet. Lorraine has the upper hand now, and who knows what she will do with that." "Chantel, take a deep breath." I couldn't listen. "And that Douglas. Nolan, I have ruined everything." "You haven't ruined anything." I pulled away from him. "How can you be so sure? No matter how much money Douglas lost to you, his name is still revered in the city. How long do you think it will be before he comes knocking with his lawyers, demanding his property back and suing for assault? Douglas' money is the least of my worries. We will cross that bridge when we reach it." "How can you be so sure?" I demanded and hugged myself as I walked back to the couch. But I didn't sit. I couldn't sit because my body was so tense. "Chantel, are you listening to me?" Nolan asked. His voice was slightly raised. "I don't care about the money. I just want my son back, and I will do anything to find him. You and I are a team." "How?" "Nolan, when you lose everything because of me, what do you think will happen? You will be back to being a pariah. Douglas will set everyone in the city against you. No one would want to help the son of a murderer whose fiancé will now be labeled a psychopath." Nolan had followed me to the couch, and now he was standing in front of me with a huge frown on his face as he tried to understand my train of thought. There was pain in his eyes, and I knew it was a result of my words. The last thing he needs to be reminded of right now is his past, especially with new trouble brewing. I closed my eyes, regretting the words I had so hurriedly blurted out a few seconds ago, but when I opened my eyes to apologize, Nolan had walked away from me and couldn't look me in the eye. "You are hysterical and there's a bit of miscommunication here. Do you have wine? A drink might help." "I don't need wine, Nolan. I'm sorry about what I said." "It's fine. We are both hurting." "I know," I interjected. "But I should never have brought that up." He walked away from me and headed to the kitchen, and I followed him, watching him open and shut cabinets without looking inside them for whatever it was he was searching for. Somehow, he opened my cupboard of wine. There was only a single bottle left there. He pulled it out and a glass. But he opened the bottle and took a swig directly from it. "I have come a long way from being just my father's son, Chantal." My heart broke. I wish I could take back my words, but words are not edible things you can just swallow back and pretend you never vomited them in the first place. "Nolan, I'm sorry. That was immature. You would never have said that kind of a thing to me." I built myself the best way I could while fighting the stigma of having a murderer for a father, Chantal. I promised myself I would be the best father to my children, and that's what I want to do with Nolan. You don't have to remind me of my past. I'll find my son, he is my son too, you know? "I know that," I whispered tearfully. "I am not my father." He paused. "And you are not crazy." I tried not to shake at the vehemence behind his words. "It's not my fault Nolan is missing, you know?" "I know. And all the money in the world could not separate me from my son, yet you act as if all I care about is riches." He faced me, and I saw the anger in his eyes. "Do you really know me, Chantal?" I nodded. "You don't." His voice broke. "Douglas could have all the best lawyers in the city at his side and ruin me, and I wouldn't care because all I truly care about is you and my son and the family we are going to build." "Yes, but I am merely concerned about how we will find him without." I had to tread carefully given the fresh wounds I opened with my words. "We need resources to find him. Douglas will bribe every force in the city to keep us from discovering the truth about Nolan's whereabouts. How do we counter him? Are you not concerned about that?" He stared at me for a long time and I saw the tears pool in his eyes, causing those green irises to become lime green pools. He raised the wine bottle and examined the label. This wine is a little too fruity. I'm going to find something stronger. Before I could stop him, he dropped the bottle on the counter, and I was surprised to see the bottle still standing in one piece, given the force with which he dropped it. He walked past me. Nolan? I think we are grieving differently. But you know where to find me when you need me, Chantel. I wanted to tell him to call me Coco. His sharp pronunciation of my given name in these circumstances sounded so distant. But I couldn't even open my mouth to speak, and he stared at me, waiting for me to say something. When he realized I wasn't going to say anything, he let out a short, sad laugh and opened the door. Later. As soon as the door slammed shut, I ran to it to call him back. But what was the use? The damage was already done. Why did I have to insist on finances? Why was I so bothered about that I brought up his past? For once, I was grateful Sophie wasn't there to chastise me. She would have reminded me about how sensitive Nolan was about his past and how insensitive I was to have brought it up. But was I in the wrong, though? I meant well when I said that. Without the money, we might never find my son again. I slumped against the door and my chest heaved, my eyes grew heavy, promising more tears. I held my hand against my chest to try to assuage the guilt and pain that ran through me. My world is once again crashing slowly around me, and the man I love has just walked out because, well, there was some miscommunication. I had considered calling Yolanda to tell her of the recent development, but right now I just wanted to sit on the floor and cry while finishing off the rest of my wine. I left the door and headed to the kitchen, a difficult feat through blurry eyes, and snatched the wine bottle off the table, drinking almost all the content without stopping. I could call Sophie, but I don't need her lecture or sympathy right now. I just want to wallow in misery. Maybe tonight or tomorrow, after a day with my thoughts, I'll come up with some plan to find my son. Nolan and me. It occurred to me that during our argument he mentioned that we were a team. You and I. I should have thought about that before bringing up the subject of his father. What was I thinking? We had what we needed. Just us. But was that enough? I tried not to cry as I thought about that. As the hours ticked by, I waited for a call. Any call at all telling me it would all be fine. But nothing like that came. Nolan didn't call either. I waited all night, even retrieving another wine from my room, but he never called. The tabloids continued to call, gossip columns wanted to hear the other half of the story from the crazy fiancé. Sophie and Yolanda called, but I ignored them all, burying myself in another bottle of wine until I was drunk to my eyeballs. I slept and was tortured with dreams of everything I ever wanted, me and Nolan and our son, and more children. But each dream would end up becoming a nightmare, and in every one of them Nolan would go missing and Nolan would walk away from me. When morning finally came, I woke up with a headache. Half of the contents from my second wine bottle had spilled out onto my clothes. As I stood up and blinked my crusty eyes open, I realized I had woken up to the sound of someone ringing the doorbell and knocking. Heart lifted with hope, I ran to open the door and faced an unexpected guest. Nolan's POV. I sat in the bar nursing a glass of scotch, one of several that I had tossed down my throat in the darkness of the private lounge. I had a bottle in front of me, and it was almost empty. At this time, I was no longer just pleasantly tipsy, I was teetering off the edge of being very drunk to my eyeballs. Being in the private lounge gave me privacy, but bits of music and noise seeped in from the main area. At least it was still quiet enough to leave me to my thoughts. And my thoughts were back to those of a lanky teenager trying hard to accept that I was no longer a weird kid but the heir to an empire. That was not an easy pill to swallow, but I still had to deal with the stigma of being the son of a murderer. But I am more than that, and I continued to repeat it to myself. That's probably why I have had too much scotch, to bury those memories deep enough so that they will never haunt me again. I know Chantel is hurt, but so am I, and it's unfair to. I struggled to suppress another sob. This will be all over when we find our son. And right at that moment, my phone rang, and I looked through blurry eyes at the caller. It was Paul. I picked up the buzzing phone and tapped the green button. Dude, where are you? At a bar. That definitely narrows it down, he said in a voice heavy with sarcasm. I tried not to laugh as I told him where I was, and he promised to find me in the next 5 minutes. I ended the call and dropped my phone. Before he arrived, I ordered another bottle of scotch and was pouring myself a generous helping when he arrived. He took one look at me and shook his head and, honestly, I don't blame him. I probably look like waste. My shirt was half opened and my eyes were probably bloodshot. You look like hell, he commented. I was just thinking about that. He shook his head again and came to join me, taking the seat opposite mine. This is obviously hard for you. I can't imagine how Chantal must feel. She's even worse. I hiccuped and downed another gulp and grimaced. The light brown liquid was beginning to piss me off. Yeah. Paul paused. I could tell he was trying to find the best way to make the next statement. After a while, he poured a glass of drink for himself. And that little stunt this morning is not going to make anything better. Lorraine is a monster. She's going to either push charges or she's going to blackmail you now that she has the upper hand. I don't care about the money. She wants to blackmail me for the money. She can have it all. I just want my son back. Yeah, I understand you, man, but don't you see how difficult that is going to be from now on? Everyone will call her the victim. Mind you, I am as convinced as you are that she took your son. But without proof and with the ball now in her court, you will have a hard time convincing everyone. Paul leaned back in his seat and peered at me over the edge of his glass. Besides, losing the inheritance and whatever else Lorraine demands for damage done to her public image leaves you at an even greater disadvantage. I eyed him curiously. How is that? You are back at her mercy. You couldn't rebuild your father's empire without her father's help. Now you sure as hell won't be able to do anything without her help. You have to talk to her. I slammed my glass on the table. I don't have to do anything. That's what you want to think, and I understand that's your pride talking, but look at that fact from an outsider's point of view. You are stuck. You and Chantal are stuck. I guarantee you, Lorraine is going to put a restraining order on Chantal, and that's one big disadvantage. You are the only one who can help with that. Talk to Lorraine, you used to be the ladies' man. You could charm a confession out of her. I am not going to fuck that bitch. You don't have to. Just use your words. Paul stared directly at me to make sure his words made sense. I frowned and nodded. As much as I hate to admit it, he is right. At the same time, I can't guarantee that Lorraine would listen to me at all. She might take this time to gloat and hurt me in more ways than one. Will I survive her revenge? I wondered to myself. But even as I thought about it, I realized that I would survive anything just to have my family back. Paul took a sip of his drink and dropped the glass on the table. How's Chantal? I sighed. Back at her apartment. We had an argument and I left. Was all he said. She said something which in retrospect makes sense. It hurts nonetheless. I looked up at him, swirling my drink in the glass. Have I done well? Do you think I am my father's son? Paul raised his brow. You have never asked me that kind of question before. Because I have never truly doubted myself until today. You said it yourself. Without the money, I can't really do much about finding Nolan. Does that take me back to being Simone Pierce's son? No. Paul's response was quick, and his voice was hard. Dude, I have watched you doubt yourself for years in school, but the man you have become is definitely not that young boy living under uncertainty anymore. You are not your father's son. Do you think losing everything will make you that? I shrugged. I don't know. Chantal mentioned something about that, and I've been thinking, I don't know. I guess I'm just blowing this out of proportion. She didn't mean to hurt me, but... I struggled to take a breath. You know what? Forget about it. Paul watched me in silence, probably wondering what I was going on about, but I know him. Once I say the conversation is done, it is done, and he will never bring it up. He has always been like that. He has always known just how sensitive I am about conversations involving my dad, and he respects boundaries by not bringing anything related to the man known as Simone Pierce. He's a great friend. Sometimes I don't know what I would have done without him. I dropped my half-drunk scotch and looked up at him with a smile. I think I am ready to go home now. I have had enough to drink, and I might just puke if I take another sip. He feigned a hurtful look. Right when I am about to get started? Come, man, that's unfair. He laughed and rose from his seat, coming over to my side to help me. I swatted his hands off. I'm fine. I protested and staggered. I am sure you are, but just in case. He helped me up, and together we walked to his car. He deposited me at the back where I slumped against the leather seats like a sack. I will get your car around in the morning, he promised, and I nodded sleepily, muttering a drunken, "Thanks, man," before dozing off to sleep. We got to my house. It was late into the night. As soon as Paul helped me get inside my house and waved goodbye, I went to the couch, fell on it, and dozed off. By morning, I was having a very terrible hangover, so bad that I couldn't stand the taste of my mouth, but when I started to rise from the couch, my doorbell went off. Holding my aching head in my hands, I walked to the door. Shielding my eyes from the bright morning light with one hand, I opened the door. And paused with a frown and an even greater urge to puke. "What the hell are you doing here?"